Hey everyone, and welcome back. Krita 5.3 has recently landed, and it's loaded with new features. Artists who create comics and line art are going to be wowed. And if you're using Krita on Android, your life is about to get so much easier. Today I'll be demonstrating how to use the top features for artists, so let's get down to it. We'll begin by looking at some new features that relate to brushes. Krita 5.3 introduces the marker blending mode, which provides a smoother transition in opacity as strokes are overlapped. If I use this custom marker brush I created to compare marker to normal, you can see normal strokes build up where each stroke overlaps. The marker example does not build up. I'll make some intersecting lines that look like a star. Again, normal builds up to a greater opacity, whereas marker does not. Now I'll make a circular blob and feather out the edges with lighter pressure. You can see that normal feels more like dry media or an airbrush. Marker has a wet feel to it. This could be marker or paint. This mode is referred to as glazing in other art applications, and it works well for that technique. If I change to a different color and lightly paint over these blobs with each mode, you can see how normal replaces the color and the opacity, whereas marker replaces the color and mostly matches the opacity. This is a very useful property that is worth experimenting with when creating brushes. Here's another new brush property. I'll select my custom chalk brush. You can download these brushes from my YouTube vault. I'll link you to that in the video description. When adding texture to brushes, the pattern property defines the texture appearance, and the strength property allows you to customize how the texture appears based on pen pressure or other expressions. As you can see, I get texture across the full range of pen pressure. In Krita 5.3, you can now select the soft texturing mode, which enables you to create brushes that show both heavy texture and no texture at all. With pressure controlling the strength, I can use light pressure to make a wet brush that smudges over the texture grain, and as I increase pressure, the texture begins to appear. This gives me a dynamic brush that creates both wet and dry effects. Also in the pattern properties, the Auto Invert Pattern for Eraser option allows you to invert the pattern to make the appearance of the erased pixels consistent with the paint. This will be more clear if I change the pattern to something like Reptile. I'll paint to show some texture, and erase with both modes. Without inverting the pattern, the texture subtracts from the negative space in the pattern. If I auto-invert it, then erasing subtracts from the positive space in the pattern. I'll reset this brush. When editing brushes or filter layers, you can use curves to customize the effects. For example, with this chalk brush, you can see this curve defines the minimum and maximum amount of texture I'll get when I vary my pressure. In this case, I wanted to clip the texture on the heavy end of the pressure range so that it doesn't fill in as much. I did this by control-clicking on a node, and I made the curve go straight across. Now, just after medium pressure, the texture will cease to increase. Control-clicking again will reset the node back to a curve. I have a video that describes how these curve editors work if you're having trouble making sense of this aspect of brush creation. These sharp nodes are available in the curve editors for filter layers as well. If I add one for color adjustment, you can see it gives me more precise control over which brightness or color values are affected. Krita 5.3 introduces the Brush Mutator Docker. This feature allows artists to randomly mutate or evolve brush settings through a panel of general properties. This provides a more streamlined way to explore variations of a brush without manually adjusting dozens of individual parameters in the brush editor. You simply set the strength range of the property you want to randomize and press the mutate button to alter the brush. This is only a temporary change unless you save the brush. You can trigger mutate with a keyboard shortcut as well. Let's move on to some new features that affect the tools in Krita. Comic book creators rejoice! A comic panel editing tool is now available in Krita. You can use this to quickly create the frames that your comics live inside. I'll fill my background with a light gray and create a new vector layer for my frames. I'll select an inking brush with black as my color and make it thin. Next, I'll select the rectangle tool and draw a large box that fills most of my page. Now if I select the comic panel editing tool from the toolbox, I can use it to draw lines that slice through the box to create panels. There is also a merging mode, which can stitch the panels back together. You drag across the slice to remove it. As you can see, it's extremely easy to make comic panels. As someone who has used other comic panel generators, I can say this one is excellent. If you're interested in learning more about making comic panels in Krita, I have a dedicated tutorial about that. Krita 5.3 enhances the transform tool with an improved free transform bounding box. You can invoke this by holding Ctrl+Alt. For objects that are at an angle, this results in less distortion when you want to widen or elongate an object. If I try that same transformation with the default bounding box, you can see how difficult it is to use. There has been a significant performance boost to the Liquify Transform mode. Prior to Krita 5.3, it was very sluggish. While I can see an improvement, it still feels sort of choppy compared to other art applications. At least it's usable now. Krita 5.3 enhances its brush stabilizing features with the ability to adjust smoothing based on stroke speed. This dynamically modifies the level of stabilization applied to a stroke depending on how fast the artist is drawing. Faster strokes tend to get ruined when stabilization is too high. For example, if I try to do some quick sketching, you'll see it's very inaccurate. If I unlink these sliders, I can set the smoothing for fast strokes low and set it high for slow strokes. As you can see, I can draw slowly to make smooth shapes, then do quick hatching without having to lower the smoothing first. If you're inking, this will be a huge time saver. This is an awesome feature. After trying it, I can't help but wonder why all brush stabilizers don't work this way. I love how innovative the Krita developers are. You gotta show them some love and make a donation at krita.org. Pixel brushes can also take advantage of smoothing. They can be stabilized using the standard modes, but they also have their own mode called Pixel. I'll make some example wavy lines with no smoothing, a high smoothing, and pixel smoothing. If you look at the lines in the overview panel, you can see how pixel smoothing makes the line more consistent in width. But where pixel smoothing really shines is for drawing straight lines. Just look at how easy it is to draw diagonal lines. You still have to be a little slow and careful, but the line is much more stable. Pixels can be a little unruly and require a lot of precision, so I appreciate that it's now much easier to draw straight lines and smoother curves. The Multibrush tool has a new Copy Translate at Intervals mode. This feature allows artists to duplicate their brushstrokes at specific user-defined intervals across the canvas. The multiple brushes will be offset from the main cursor in pixels. You can set the X and Y intervals together or independently. This neat little feature makes it effortless to generate intricate patterns, grids, or architectural details. Krita 5.3 enhances the Fill tool with a more robust Close Gaps Tolerance setting. This feature is designed to address the common challenge of small openings in line art that would otherwise cause a color fill to bleed into unintended areas of the canvas. By allowing users to define a specific gap distance, the software can bridge these breaks in the line work, ensuring that the fill remains contained. You may still need to clean up the fills since the bridged gap can be a little rough, but even so, this significantly speeds up the coloring process by reducing the necessity for touching up line work. Many art styles rely on broken lines, so this is definitely a welcome feature. The Curve Linear Assistant is a specialized drawing aid designed for artists working with curved perspective. If I place 2 points outside the canvas, you can see it as a guide that brushes can snap to. Holding V will toggle your brush to straight line mode, and adding Shift will snap it to specific angle increments. If you want to draw curved vertical lines as well, you'll need to add another set of guides for those. This tool is particularly useful for creating wide-angle architectural illustrations and creative lettering. Krita 5.3 expands the customization of shortcuts by introducing additional canvas input settings for touch gestures. This update provides users with greater flexibility to map essential actions such as sample color, deselect, layer activation, and tool activation. This is particularly useful for Krita on Android tablets like the Wacom Moving Pad. Even zooming has been improved in Krita 5.3. Now, the default zoom shortcuts match the zoom tool functionality of zooming to the mouse cursor location. To zoom in and out of the center of the canvas, use Control Space Left button. You can change this in the canvas input zoom settings. As you can see, you can customize zoom for the keyboard and the mouse wheel. Now for some features for filters and layers. Krita 5.3 introduces the Fast Color Overlay Mask, a non-destructive layer effect designed to streamline the inking process. This feature allows artists to apply a solid color over a sketch to make it easier to trace over with ink. A swatch appears next to the layer, and you can click on this to open a menu to customize the overlay color and opacity. To hide or remove the effect, click on the arrow beneath the layer. You can even edit the mask to make parts of it colorized and the rest the default color. Transforming multiple layers is now possible. You can select several layers or groups and scale, rotate, shear, distort, warp, and even liquefy them at once. Being able to distort multiple layers at once without merging them is huge. This one single change will have a major impact on my workflow. Again, I have to give kudos to the Krita developers on this one. Now if we can just get blending to happen on multiple layers at once. The Dockers have some new features to explore. Let's take a look. Krita 5.3 enhances the time-lapse workflow with the introduction of real-time capture for the Recorder Docker. This update allows the Recorder Docker to capture the drawing process as it happens, rather than just saving a snapshot after each stroke. By recording in real time, artists can create more fluid and natural process videos that capture every nuance of their technique. You can select the FPS or frames per second speed of the video. 30 is standard, and 60 will make a smoother recording. You can also choose how many computer threads will be used to capture the recording. Setting this higher will result in a less choppy recording, but you also want to save some threads for processing brushstrokes in Krita and for other applications that you might be multitasking with. Krita 5.3 now allows you to add Dockers to the pop-up palette. This makes it more convenient to access frequently used functions when in full screen mode or when using Krita on Android. By default, the on-canvas brush editor appears next to the pop-up palette. This shows the current brush and gives you quick access to common properties like size, opacity, and angle. You can customize the panel to show more properties such as flow, spacing, and lightness strength. There is even a button to reset the brush properties. You can toggle between multiple palettes with the drop-down menu. If I show layers, you can see the default layers panel disappears and the pop-up one becomes active. I think nearly all of the Dockers can be added here. The grid options have been enhanced in Krita 5.3. In the rectangular mode, you can now hide the vertical or horizontal guides. This could be useful for a lot of things, for example, hand lettering on horizontal guides with dashed subdivisions. An enhanced isometric grid has been added. This one offers more options to customize the grid. You can even make hexagonal grids by setting the angle to 30 degrees with a large cell size. If I want the hexagons to be isometric, I can set the angle to 20. What's great about this update is that these guides and grids are now saved with each individual document. Krita 5.3 introduces the Workflow Buttons Docker, a customizable palette that can hold brushes, tools, and trigger all sorts of commands via scripts. You can customize the button size. The icons can be customized with the default icons or a custom one. You can add custom tooltips for the buttons and select a brush color. So for example, if my workflow is for line art, I can have a sketching pencil set to gray, then select an inking brush set to black, and finally an enclose and fill tool for coloring. You can expand on this using scripts. For example, I have added this script that creates a new vector layer. Hopefully in the future there will be more options built into the button editor that allow you to select keyboard shortcuts and other commands so that it isn't necessary to write a script. In addition to single functions, scripts can also trigger multiple steps. The sky is the limit with scripts, and there are lots of free scripts you can download from the Krita community. The panel can be resized, and the buttons will flow accordingly. This makes it very versatile since you can make vertical, horizontal, or even square-shaped panels. You can even dock this in the UI. This feature is very handy when added to the pop-up palette. I am a bit disappointed that you can only create a single panel since I have lots of different workflows, but perhaps in the future we will be able to create multiple panels. It would be great if these could serve as a more customizable version of the toolbars. The text features have been greatly improved in Krita 5.3. Let's see what's new. Krita 5.3 introduces the highly anticipated ability to edit text on the canvas. Prior to 5.3, you would have to edit text in a clunky dialog menu. Man, was that a drag. Considering pretty much every other art application allows for on-canvas text editing, it's good to see Krita step up such a crucial feature. As you can see, text appears on its own vector layer, which means it will stay crisp and editable even if you resize it or the canvas. But the text upgrades don't end there. You can now create wrapped text, text in a shape, and text on a path. These features are a total game changer for creators focused on dialogue and lettering, as they allow text to dynamically respond to the geometry of the composition. Wrapped text eliminates the need for manual line breaks, allowing text to automatically flow and adjust within a defined rectangular boundary. This is a key feature for any type of book layout, comic design, or graphic design. You can even edit the text box, and the text will automatically reflow to fit the shape. Text in shape allows artists to wrap text inside any vector shape. This opens up the doors to all sorts of creative effects where text can be constrained inside a visual container. Most notably, it can be used for adding dialogue inside of comic book word bubbles. By dragging the dashed line of the container shape, you can create a margin along the edges to make the text more centered. Text on path allows for the precise placement of text along straight or curved vector lines. It is particularly useful for stylized titles or any design where text needs to follow a specific contour. If you hover over a line, the text icon will change, and when you click, your text will adhere to the edge of that shape. This little dot near the text allows you to make it flow inside or outside the shape, as well as change its position on the path. It's important to note that the text and shape are linked together, so if I change the shape, the text changes too. For this reason, you may want to make your path invisible by removing any strokes or fills before adding text to it. Unfortunately, when you do this, the shape can no longer be edited, only the text. The new Text Properties Docker in Krita 5.3 provides a centralized hub for managing typographic properties across a project. By utilizing this Docker, artists can quickly adjust font families, sizes, and paragraph alignment. There are even controls for setting the padding when using text inside shapes. You can edit the character properties individually, or you can edit the entire paragraph. There's even a way to save presets, which will greatly streamline the production of text-heavy work such as comics or technical illustrations. More properties can be added to this menu at the bottom. You can remove these properties with the revert arrow. Using the revert arrow on the main properties will reset their values to default. And last, we'll explore some of the new features that relate to working with files in Krita. Krita 5.3 introduces a redesigned bundle creator, a tool designed to simplify the packaging and sharing of custom resources. This update guides you step by step through the creation process. As you can see, there are tabs on the left that show the 4 basic steps. If I want to make a bundle of my brush presets, I'll select that. Next, I'll have the option of embedding tags, which help you filter out groups of brushes. After that, I can add some metadata for the bundle and choose an icon. And last, I'll choose the save destination. Krita 5.3 significantly improves the interoperability between Krita and Adobe Photoshop by expanding what can be preserved when saving to and from the PSD format. This update focuses on text, shape, and guide compatibility. Shapes, vector masks, and guides can now be exchanged between Krita and Photoshop, and some advanced text features like text on a path can be loaded from PSD into Krita as well. That wraps up our deep dive into this valuable Krita 5.3 update. These enhancements solidify Krita's position as one of the top art applications. If you're new to Krita or just want to master all the features, don't forget to check out my Krita 5 Essentials course linked in the description below. Hit that like button, subscribe for more digital art tutorials, and let me know in the comments which 5.3 feature you like best. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.